Okay, this is the video for the section 4.3 notes. You are going to need to have your textbooks open to page 231. You're going to need your different colored pens and maybe a highlighter, and you're also going to need a ruler because we're going to do a graph today. So we're going to talk about a new form of equation. We've talked about standard form in chapter 3, and we talked about slope-intercept form in sections 4.1 and 4.2. We're going to introduce something called point-slope form today, and point-slope form looks like this. It has y minus y sub 1 equals m times x minus x sub 1. Now, x minus x sub 1 is inside of parentheses. So notice that you have an x and a y by themselves, and then you have an x sub 1, y sub 1. These are going to actually turn out to be values from an ordered pair. The x sub 1 and y sub 1. And your x and y are actually going to just stay x and y. They're not going to turn into numbers. So keep in mind that x sub 1 and y sub 1 are from a given point on a non-vertical line. The reason we have to include that non-vertical line part is because, remember from section 4.1 we decided that vertical lines don't have a slope, so they can't be written in point-slope form. And then remember, m is our slope. Alright, we're ready to jump into an example. The first thing it asks us to do is to write an equation in point-slope form for the line that passes through 3, -2 with a slope of 1/4. Then they ask us to graph it. So let's start with writing the equation. Okay, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to collect the information that I know I need. I know that I have m equals 1/4, and I have an ordered pair, and I'm going to call it x sub 1, y sub 1, and I know that from up here it tells me the given point. So my x sub 1 and y sub 1 are 3, -2. They tell me that in the original problem. So to write my point-slope form, I'm going to say y minus, now it says y minus y sub 1. My y sub 1 is -2, so y minus a -2 equals m, which is 1/4, times x minus x sub 1, which is 3. Okay, I'm going to simplify it. I know that y minus a negative is the same thing as adding a positive. So I'm going to say y plus 2 equals, now I'm not going to use the distributive property. I don't have to simplify it that far. I just say 1/4 times x minus 3. If I were to simplify it even further, I would end up in slope-intercept form, and that's not what it's asking for. So this is point-slope form. Now I have to go ahead and graph it. I know an ordered pair and I know my slope. I can graph just from those two things. So I'm going to start by drawing in my x and y axes. I'm going to draw my y axis way over to the left. And then I'm going to draw my x-axis kind of up towards the top, because I know I'm starting at -2 and I'm only rising 1. Label your axes and your origin. Okay, first I start with the ordered pair that they gave me, 3, -2. So go over 3 and down 2 and mark your point. Second thing I'm going to do is use my slope to find a couple more points. I know that slope is rise over run, so I'm going to rise 1, run 4. So from this ordered pair, rise 1, run 4. I'm going to draw in 3 points just like I did in the previous notes. Rise 1, run 4. Okay, this ordered pair is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and down 1. So 7, -1. And this one is at 11, 0. Remember, if it touches the x-axis, that is its solution, root, or 0, or x-intercept. Go ahead and draw in your line through those 3 points. And we're finished with that example. Turn to the next page. Sometimes, instead of giving us the slope, they're going to give us two ordered pairs. And then you have to write it in point slope form. That just adds one more step. The only thing you have to do is use those two ordered pairs to write the slope. So let's start with that. I have the ordered pairs, -1, 4, and 3, 8. I'm missing the slope. This is my first point, this is my second point. To find the slope, I take 3 minus 4 over 8 minus 4. 8 minus 4 over 3 minus a -1. Remember that subtracting a negative is the same thing as adding a positive. So 8 minus 4 gives me 4 over 3 plus 1 gives me 4. 4 divided by 4 is just 1. So I have a slope of 1. So now I'm going to use slope or point slope form, which is y minus y sub 1 equals m times the quantity of x minus x sub 1. Now, to graph it, or not to graph it, to write the equation, I have to use 1 as my slope, but I have two ordered pairs. You can choose one of them. I'm going to do both of them, and I want you to for your notes, but on your homework, you only need to choose one. So I'm going to say y minus, we're going to do -1, 4 first. Y minus y sub 1, which is 4, equals m, which is 1, times x minus x sub 1, which is -1. So I have to simplify this. Y minus 4 is fine. Equals 1 times, now if I'm subtracting a negative, it's the same thing as adding a positive. Okay? So let's take a look. If I have the other ordered pair, 3, 8, I'm going to write it as y minus 8 equals 1 times x minus 3. 1 is my slope, 8 is my y sub 1, 3 is my x sub 1. That's as simplified as it can get and still be in point slope form. Now, these both fall on that same line. We've decided that because we gave them a slope, so they fall on the same line, but their point slope forms look different. That's okay. They're two different points, so your point slope form will look different. However, if we were to simplify both of these into slope intercept form, we'd find that we get the same thing. We're going to do that in our notes. So I have y minus 4 equals 1 times x plus 1. But I know if I were to distribute this 1, I would still just get x plus 1. So I'm going to put it in slope intercept form to see that these two give us the same line. So to get y by itself, I have to add 4 to both sides. I get y equals, the x is still alone, plus 5. That's the equation for the line in slope intercept form. Now let's go over to the other equation and see if we get the same thing. I have y minus 8 equals, if I distribute this 1, I get x minus 3. I'm going to add 8 to both sides to get y by itself, and I get y equals x plus 5. So even though their point slope form equations look different because we use two different points for them, if I were to go ahead and simplify them both into slope intercept form, I would get the same line, which is accurate because both of these points fall on the same line. In your homework, you need to make sure you're looking to see what it's asking for. It might ask you for point slope form. It might ask you for slope intercept form. It might ask you for standard form. Remember, standard form is ax plus by equals c. You're going to have to use algebra to manipulate those things to look like what you want. For standard form, you need to get your notes out because there are a few special rules. Remember, a cannot be negative. They have to have a greatest common factor of 1 and no fractions or decimals. I would get those notes out there from chapter 3 so that you make sure that you get those ones answered correctly. Put a star by any of the ones that you can answer on your own so I can answer them in class for you. Otherwise, good luck.